Welcome back to Stash and Waffles, episode 3. I'm Stash.
And I'm Waffles.
And I'm Jemaine Roberts.
And today we have a special episode for you guys. Jemaine, to the right of me here, is a musician as well as a videographer. And we were just hoping that his insight might be helpful to our viewers in the different journeys that they're trying to go on. So, yeah, let's jump right into it.
Sure, let's go.
My first question, naturally, is where does it all start? Like, the creative journey in general.
Look, I mean, I was brought up in a predominant church environment, so if your parents are the lead pastors of the church, there's always music and creativity around you, whether you are part of the worship team or part of the creative team that does all the ads for the TV. And so you're surrounded by that all the time, and so one way or the other you end up getting into something creative. So that's where it started, maybe age 8 or 9. I actually remember my parents booking a holiday to Cape Town, and I was like, it's just another holiday. And I told my father, why don't you let me stay home, and the money you would use for Cape Town, let me buy my first guitar. And then age 8.
So guitar.
Sure, and I bought my first guitar, and I was stuck in my room 6-7 hours a day jamming to 5 FM. And that's how I learned to play guitar.
So you taught yourself how to play the guitar as well?
Yeah, and then joining the worship team, and then you have guys like, you know, Yvonne, Brenton, Goldman, those guys that kind of feed off each other, and that's how we learned to play our music.
Were they learning as well? Were they more senior?
They were more senior than me. They were older than me. I mean, Yvonne was a jazz guitarist. Brenton was a rocker, part of one of my favorite bands growing up, and so they taught us how to jam our instruments. And obviously, naturally, being part of church, we all joined the worship team, and that's when that started.
Is music in your family? Or
only my mom. My mom was like was the worship leader, but my father had no voice. My brother's got no musical abilities. My sister doesn't care. They like music, they just are not musicians, you know. So yeah.
So you said you were from 8 years old.
Yeah, about 8 I got my first guitar, a black Ibanez guitar. Yeah.
And your band movements, how long would you say it took from getting introduced to the guitar and then playing around and getting exposed? So you were actually playing, I know you're a vocalist as well.
Yeah.
And did that start for you straight away, the vocal thing in the guitar, or was it mostly?
Yeah, the vocal and guitar thing happened naturally. Vocals just naturally came because I always was singing along to what was on radio. But from 8 years old to about 13, 14 years old, I was in the youth band already. But that exposure to other musicians, you learn way faster than just jamming in your room. Vocals or guitars. And then from there, you go into the main worship team. And I think at like 17 years old, myself, Christopher Williams, and Anton Hutton. Anton was the drummer, Christopher was the bassist, I was the guitarist. We started writing music together. And by 18, 19, we were touring with bands.
Whoa.
So
it was
were you
quick.
A band?
Yeah, 3-piece band.
What is your band's name?
Incarnation.
Incarnation. What in Incarnation?
I heard about them because for those who don't know, Jay and I are from the same city.
Yeah.
We grew up in the same city, but we're both residing in Johannesburg now. This is where we reconnected, in Johannesburg. But I never really knew him back then, but I just knew, okay, there's this music guys and there's the music thing going on, and I was more in the sports world than the sports because of my sports background. And just crazy story, the whole big gap in between, from us. From me knowing him back there and then meeting Jay, it's really interesting to me. So with Incarnation, what would you say, what was your type of music that you guys played?
Yeah, we were rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
And we were all colored guys. So I mean, I was at a colored school like St. Thomas, and our first gig was playing in Mr. and Miss St. Thomas, and it's an all colored school. And we were like, we're gonna do Linkin Park songs, and the guys went crazy. They loved it. And it was weird. It was a weird response because I thought they wouldn't like it, but they were amazed at these 3 guys that can like break the cycle or the perspective of you colored guys should be hip hop or whatever
house.
else or
Yeah.
house, and we just went rock and roll, and people were just amazed. And from that to flying up to Johannesburg to do Battle of the Bands against a big band called Taxi Violence. We were the top two, and they just kicked our ass. But yeah, Taxi Violence was a big band, but it was an honor playing alongside them. Battle of the Bands, yeah, that's crazy. Flying out to Joburg for that was amazing.
Was that your first time flying out to Joburg?
I mean, I flew to Joburg, but the first time as a band, you know, coming up to Johannesburg, which was quite amazing.
And then how long was your band together for? And
I think in total like 2 years, you know, just from us writing music to us touring with a band called Finkelsteins. We used to do the whole garden route, used to play J-Bay, Neisner, used to play all these gigs.
this is all in high school.
This was just after high school.
Oh, just
I
after.
mean, 19 years old, we just out of high school,
Just matric.
doing our thing, yeah.
I see. And like, was it always the plan as soon as you started picking up music?
No, I mean, sheesh, it was, how do you plan that? You know what I mean? Like, you know, unless you very stubborn and super focused, you go like, I want to be in a rock band one day. I had no idea. I picked up the guitar and I was like, oh, I like this music. And then Christopher joined, and then Anton joined, and we were like, okay, we all like this music and it's cool. So it was a natural thing that happened. We didn't force anything.
How did you guys link up with the Finkelsteins?
They were a PE band as well, and they thought we were good enough for opener for them. They were crazy energy, and we were just crazy the fact that we were a
Getting
group of
attacked.
colored guys doing rock music. So everyone was like, whoa, and then,
Transitional of culture.
yeah, that was big. Yeah, thinking about it now, it was quite big. Yeah.
And how does a colored guy end up liking rock music?
I was always the emo kid. I was always like against everything else. We used to have a bunch of friends, you know, Riyadh Panel, he was like this DJ. I loved his vibe, but our friendship was cool because he was house, deep house, and I was rock, and we could have a relationship, and it was so cool. And I remember going to Mr. and Mrs. Thomas and going to gigs, supporting him, and he always used to support what I did. And I just realized that we don't all have to like the same thing. We can like completely different things and still have bonds, you know. And so I like that. And I was the only one that was into rock. And so I like that as well. It was quite unique for the only cat to, yeah.
And what was your biggest influence?
Linkin Park.
Linkin Park.
Linkin Park. That's it, pretty much. And from a South African perspective, we listened a lot to a band called Sarin Gas. They later changed their name to Seether. Yeah, there were a lot of Finkelsteins, were a massive band. There was a band called So What that Brenton Goldman was a part of. Pretty much a lot of punk rock going on that time.
And that was the sound that you were.
Yeah, and then our sound was really Linkin Park, more Papa Roach, definitely Papa Roach, rap rock. So there was the urban element mixed into our sound, for sure.
Do you have your stuff available right now from Incarnation?
Sheesh, I mean, when we were playing, there was no YouTube, bro. And then we stopped.
Damn dinosaur.
I think the songs are floating. Christopher's got some of the songs still, but we've just never uploaded the stuff, you know?
Any tour footage?
Did we have camera phones back then? I'm like a fossil, bro. People have
Okay,
memories.
boomer.
People have memories about us playing. We've got newspaper pictures of the band being together and interviewed by the Herald. That's basically what we have. And we recorded, I think, 3 or 4 professional songs, and then that was it. Yeah, it was very difficult to get into a studio. Back in the day, but we managed to get into an amazing studio and then connecting with guys up in Johannesburg, and then it just grew from there. But our passions were all different as well. So, you know, Anton became a pastor, it was full-time ministry. I moved to Johannesburg, Christopher's based in Port Elizabeth, so we all started families and did our own thing. And so, but we're still good friends today, which is quite cool. It wasn't like a breakup of like, I hate you. It was just like, okay, we're doing our own things, you know. We were finding ourselves at age 19, 20, and that was a season, and we all just stopped doing it.
And that's actually quite huge for people from Port Elizabeth. As you know, Port Elizabeth is a very small place. Whenever there's a tour, artist tour in South Africa, it's like not even on the map.
Yeah.
So we never get artists to Johannesburg, Cape Town.
Durban, maybe.
Durban, yeah.
Perhaps,
That's it.
And that's it. So Port Elizabeth is a very small, very beautiful place, but very, very sort of like small city vibe, with like a touch of metropolitan sort of like flavor to it, you know. So a lot of talent around there. But just, you know, to be an observer from the same sort of time and era of Jay's career and what they were doing, it was sort of like unheard of. Crossing barriers musically was, I think, me thinking back and placing myself in that position, it was almost unheard of, and that's the beauty of creativity and involving yourself in a creative journey. You can transition all boundaries, whether it's race, socio-economic, social dynamics, culture, anything, because art is something that is within us, you know, and the form that we put it out into the world, there's so many different forms of art. You know, whether it's music, whether it's painting, whether it's flooring, tiling, gardening, whatever it be. And I think, you know, what would you say to someone walking the same path as you or wanting to achieve what you achieved in that sort of phase of your lifetime? What words of advice could you pass on to someone?
Geez, you know what? I do think that back in the day versus now is such different times. There's a lot of things that are more challenging now. There's a lot of things that are much more easier. So let's talk about just getting on the map. To get on the map nowadays is much easier because you have social media, you have a camera phone, you don't even need professional gear. You just gooi it on your phone and you have a video, you know. Back in the day we didn't have that. But back in the day we didn't have the pressure of social media. There was, we were touring, we made mistakes, we had fun. It was the culture of being in a band and touring with different bands was a beautiful thing, and not having that social media stress or trying to reach numbers. We didn't want to reach numbers, we didn't care about that. We just wanted to play live. I was listening to Dave Grohl doing an interview, and he was like, he just hates that guys are looking at the numbers, and if the numbers are not great, they're like, we suck. But all he cared about with Nirvana and Foo Fighters was just to play live. He just wanted to connect with the people, and that's what we did. We used to play, we used to play a lot of gigs, and we didn't have the stress of you know, numbers or record label. Eventually there were record labels knocking, but we had a stress-free life. But the consistency of sticking with what you have. We were actually, my advice would actually be, blind yourself
from the distraction.
Blind yourself from everything. Just like write your music, release it, write, release, play, write, release, pray, and then you look up and you're like, oh, okay, we're on this stage and there's 10,000 people. That's cool. Because now we're like, right, oh, what are we gonna do for marketing? Oh, what are we gonna do? You know, merchandise. We never cared about anything. We just like wrote music. We didn't care about the guitars we had. Now I'm very
conscious of
you know, I'm just like, I like my Fender Strats, I like my Tellys. Back in the day I was like, hey, what guitar can I borrow from the church? And they were like, there we go, take that chord. And I'm like, oh, that's my guitar now. So there was no distractions. We just were focused on what we loved doing. Maybe that's the advice.
And what was your metric for quality? Like, how did you know this is good? Because people would argue that they use the numbers for that metric.
How did I know this was good? Well, we were alongside bands like Taxi Violence, Folk of Polisikar. Sometimes we were playing at gigs where Prime Soko was playing. We were playing with Finkelsteins. That was the metric. It was like, these guys want to play with us. Clearly, we're doing something right. You know what I mean? So yeah.
What kind of numbers were you putting in crowds and what?
Oh, look, I mean, we had a couple of gigs where we were like the headliner band, but I mean, 2,000 people, that was a lot for us. And then opening up for like Finkelsteins and other guys, I mean, racking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Yeah, so that was quite cool.
Did you ever feel a sense of imposter syndrome being around such big bands?
Always. always.
How
It
did you
never goes
overcome that?
away. No, how do you overcome it? You never do.
You never do.
You never do as an artist. You're always gonna think, am I good enough? You're always gonna think,
Facts.
is this good enough? Even at age 70, I think I'm gonna be like, oh,
This isn't.
am I thin enough? Am I strong enough? Am I, you know?
I know that you almost gave the answer for this question that you asked before him asking the question when you said focus on the art.
Yeah.
To focus on the art and catapult yourself in the art. What I've found from getting involved in as an artist a lot, almost at the second half of my life, focusing on something else for the first, it makes you better at the other stuff. Focusing on the art assists you to focus on the admin stuff, to focus on the merch stuff, to focus on the, I started off focusing on art for like 5 minutes a day, just to be somebody who focused on art, or to become an artist. And it's sort of like built into, if I start my day off with the creative stuff, it makes the other stuff better, better to deal with, easier to get to, a better focus, and that's just one of those beautiful things of this creative journey.
I have a question for the both of y'all. When you say focus on the art, how much of it is purposeful and how much of it is just letting the flow come? Like, do you sit down and say, today I'm writing? Or do you walk one day and a lyric comes into your head and you go and work on it, or a melody comes into your head? Or is it a purposeful endeavor? Is it, actively pursuing the art? Or is it sort of like letting the universe speak through you?
I think it depends on the type of artist you are. I mean, you get people that record music for a living, right? They have to go into the studio and produce. And then you get people that have to dictate the environment to be creative. It depends on the type of person you are. So I can really write anywhere. I can be creative anywhere, anytime, and I've learned to do that working in the industry for a while now. But starting off, if you have a roadblock, stop doing it or change your environment. I've had many times roadblocks, and when I mean roadblocks, I'll be like, I'm completely blank, I can't write anything. Then I change my environment. I'm sitting in my room, I go to the beach, when I was in PE, obviously. And then I'm like, whoa, there's the creativity. So change your environment, it'll help you with your block. But it depends on the type of person you are. And also, sometimes me as an introvert, I don't listen to other music. I don't, because I'm so isolated. And then I'm like, why am I getting a block? The creative block. It's because I'm not listening to other music. It's because I'm not leaving this environment. You change those two things and then boom, the creativity flow.
Yeah, download period.
Working with, so Jay and I just finished a 7-month project.
Yeah.
And just learning from the way I used to operate before, just in my business and my career and as an athlete. It's very intensive and focused and routine. And one of the tools of the creative side is to give yourself breathing space in between.
Yeah.
With just working with Jay, you would say, let's give our ears a break. Or let's, and if life happened in between, before in a task I would be like, pile on the pressure to get the task done and to just shove life aside, whereas in the creative process, that life happening in between
is important.
That exact down period that you need to assist you to get the rest of what is inside of you out there.
Yeah.
So I really embraced the gaps and the patience at this stage, and that's why I'm so grateful for doing it at this stage and not maybe as a younger, me, myself.
That's actually an interesting one. So we've got a contrast here. We've got an artist that started very young and an artist that started much later. And you've worked together as well. Did you notice any difference because of that, different approaches to the music? Did you guys feel that disconnect or a connect because of that?
You know what? Like, I think there's some artists that you work with that you just don't connect with, and you as a producer have to be honest and go like, it's not gonna work. The connection and disconnection, I purely measure that by the chemistry. That's it. I don't care what religion, what race you are. If there's no chemistry in the studio, which was immediate when the two of us got together, it flowed. I mean, the first song happened fast. And that's what told me, cool, we're good.
That
You know, it's the chemistry, it's the throwing of ideas. A lot of people work differently. Some people need $1 million studio. Some people can do it in their bedrooms. Some people write to beats. Some people write lyrics first and then music later. There's really no rule.
There's no rule.
There's no rule. So I can't go like, oh, you write to beats, I don't. It's not gonna work. No. If there's chemistry, done.
It just works.
Sorted, yeah.
It just works. I love that. I love that. I love that. Chemistry. The importance of chemistry between connections. And what was the high point while working on the project? Like, what was the best point you're like, this was my favorite memory from working on the project?
For me, I was actually listening to the voice note this morning because whenever we're together, whenever I came to studio, I just took some clips or record some voice notes of what we're working on. And I'd veg on it till the next, and just have it on repeat till the next time. And this morning I was listening to it differently because I was listening to the things we were saying. When something comes together, when you find a riff or when Jay builds something on a bass line, or just, you know, once we're done recording or I lay the actual vocal and that reaction moment, you know, it's indescribable and it's magical.
It's beautiful.
It's a gift, it's gratitude, it's magic. It's actual magic that is just between you, the creator, and the creation process. And for me, the question that you asked with regards to us meeting each other at different stages of my life, I was in absolute awe, of course, because of Jay's workflow, following his journey and then seeing the result of that and having an opportunity to work with it. I know I think I said it to you, I've worked with producers before, trying to get projects out here, and they're just, you know, playing rugby and doing music as a fun thing or another thing, you know, and work. That was like the best thing to ever happen, you know, because I got that outlet to get it out there. But working with Jay at this stage and seeing his workflow, seeing his professionalism, seeing his effortless sort of like building of something from nothingness, and the ability for me, him, to get out what I'm trying to say,
to understand
what I can't say with words. And so the chemistry is definitely there. Us being from the same hood,
also
us having that same sort of like data input helped. You know, like where I stay, where we stay now, you don't need, your house doesn't tremor. But where we stay before, your house tremors, and there's not an earthquake or anything. It's like no natural disasters here in South Africa. Lately, you know, but it's a taxi driving past you.
Oh, snap.
Wild. Like 15-inch subs, you know, and it's always on the path.
On the path, bro. On the path.
Yeah. Taxi path all this. So that's what happened. To your house, and there's times when we were creating a bass line or something for the song, and I was just like, this is that.
This is that feeling,
you know,
that shape.
You know, and you didn't have to say it, I didn't have to mention it to him, you know what I mean? And it just happened. So that is part of the magic, you know, in the person that I can really appreciate. I think if I started early, it would have just felt like something, this is the process.
Yeah, we're just doing this.
The novelty was probably would have been worn off. For Jay, working with different kinds of artists, what would you say your approach has to be? You need to be very versatile, of course, to be able to get.
Yeah, you have to be versatile, but I spent time with the artist before. I don't think we hit the studio immediately. We met a few times, we spoke. I just try to capture your vibe. I try to catch what you did before. I try to get some reference tracks of where you want to go, but mostly just get to know you and then try to replicate what's in your mind onto the speakers, and that process is very important because then it kind of makes everything else much smoother. I'm very adaptable, so whether someone goes like hip-hop artists are like, give me a beat, you know, and then, you know, musicians who are well versed in chord structures, they want to be left in a studio to work it out. So you approach people differently. Hip hop guys are not generally musicians; they are lyricists, you know. And so I become the muso. So I'm like filling in this gap where other musicians, they come and they play, and I sit back and then I have a different view and I go, okay, cool, this works, that doesn't work. So it just depends on the artist. The approach always changes, but you have to be flexible.
A little bit more about backstory. I feel like I've never really gotten this opportunity to sit down because it's always business when you know, and there's so much I wanted to know because of his sort of like output, what his inputs were, you know. So after your time with the band and then splitting up, and then after doing your tour with the Finkelsteins and that sort of like phase and stage of your life, coming to Johannesburg, was that a career move, knowing that Johannesburg is where it's all at for artists and creators?
Actually, before that was the States. It was Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I actually worked at a camp as a music teacher.
Is that what took you to the States?
Yeah, that's what took me to the States, and then we were touring, and then we were thinking about studies, and so everything was just happening in the States. But my highlight in the States was going to something called Project Revolution, and I was like, I need to go here. And it was Linkin Park was the headliner. It was Snoop Dogg, it was Korn, it was like a mixed pot of so many different musicians. And then I ended up going backstage and meeting Linkin Park. And that was like the highlight for me. Because at that point it was like, yeah, I'm going to do music. I'm going to do music. I'm going to be in entertainment in my life. I never locked myself down though. Because now I'm like a video producer. I'm a content creator. I'm more behind the camera more than anything else. And I'm still passionate about obviously production and producing for different artists. But yeah, that was the highlight in the States. But you know, how do you move from Pennsylvania or New York? New York, I was there for a couple of months. How do you move from New York to Port Elizabeth? That was the challenge for me, because New York was this big pot of talent and different cultures and different religion. And going back to PE, there was like a small town. And so the very next natural move was Joburg. So yeah, that's how I ended up coming to Johannesburg.
You ever think about going back to PE?
When I retire, like when I'm 100.
No retiring for you.
No,
eh?
PE is really nice, but I don't think I will ever. It's not a big enough city to run a business, a production company. It's in Cape Town, it's in Johannesburg. That's where that is. So visiting PE, I love visiting the family, but it just doesn't make sense from a business owner point of view. Yeah.
So I think one thing I can take from that story is also like being aware of where the business is at and going to where the business is.
That's right, Joe.
So what happened next after your move to Johannesburg?
So my move to Johannesburg, I started working in a production company, and I started working at a church as well simultaneously. So I had these two jobs, which is great. I mean, Joburg was expensive, so you had to live. But the production company, I was a junior audio editor, and I was full-time at the church as a worship leader, because I come from that. So I was like, I know this, so let me do that. And it was amazing, because as a junior editor, you learn to work with corporate clients, because we used to do pick and pay ads, Discim ads. We used to knock out like 60 ads per month. Per month.
Wild.
And that was TV and radio. And so you learn to work with Pro Tools, with a studio, with the clients, getting feedback, and you gain all that experience while I am being a musician at the church. So I was a full-time musician and a full-time producer, which was a beautiful time. I didn't earn crazy salaries, but I had the two jobs and I could survive, but the experience was important. And so yeah, Light Production was the first company that I worked with. And I actually spoke to a guy, Jerry, yesterday. He was part of Light Production. Jerry was the producer of Top Billing. I don't know if you guys remember Top Billing.
I remember Top Billing.
And I went to his birthday party. Tamisha Marsha was there, so he was the presenter on Top Billing. And I was just hanging out with those guys, and we were just like, we come so long. it's been 11, 12 years working with these guys in the industry. We always fed each other work, and we always backed each other up, and we built each other's production companies. But I learned from Jerry. I mean, Jerry is a senior, you know, and so I learned a lot from him: how to shoot, how to liaise with clients, how to get new clients, how to stay professional. So yeah.
So there's the production side, then the musician, guitarist side. There's the entrepreneur side of you. Then there's the music and movie scoring.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails? That was very, very interesting.
Yeah. So when I was in the States, yes, I was a musician, and yes, I was in awe of Linkin Park and all these other bands, but I was connecting with a lot of producers that were not producing artists, they were doing film, and I was like, what is this? This is crazy. And that's when I was introduced to Pro Tools before coming to Johannesburg. And then I realized, yeah, Pro Tools back then was like the thing, because that was like 5.1 surround sound mixing. Then we got into it. I mean, I learned that there. And then when I came back to South Africa, I landed a Leon Schuster movie. I landed all these Afrikaans films, and then we started doing English horror films. And then when I look back at my portfolio, I was like, wow, I did 12 films in 12 years. That's crazy. That's pretty cool.
For somebody who doesn't know what it is that you did for the movie.
So my job was, I was the final mix engineer, and I was the sound design. So you know, in a movie, you have to recreate the sound effects.
Yeah, the doors opening.
You have to recreate the footsteps. You have to recreate the ambience. So, and then also there's something called ADR. So it's automatic dialogue re-recording. So you get the actors, the actresses back into studio to voice what they were saying. One perfect example was working with Paul Tusi on a film called Catching Feelings on Netflix. A very, very cool film under a company called the Prente Films. So yeah, we were doing ADR with Paul Tusi, and it came out amazing. So anything audio related for films, I was that guy.
Did you find a crossover between like doing audio for films and making music?
Yeah, so my genre of music that I liked a lot was obviously rock, but also score, film score, orchestra. I love that. I love being able to do string arrangement, brass arrangements, timpani arrangements, and that was lined up with film. You have to kind of score the music for the scene.
Makes sense.
And I like doing that a lot, you know.
Tell me, is that an academic sort of certification and qualification?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely, but a lot of guys nowadays are doing it without the qualifications, and they are amazing. They are absolutely amazing guys that create scores, electronical scores, without even using
an orchestra.
Full orchestras are killing it.
An example of doing a score would be Pharrell and Despicable Me.
Yeah, perfect example. But obviously their budget was millions, so he's creating it in his studio, and then he writes out the music for the orchestra. We get like a conductor to write it out. Or just So you know, that's a full brass string orchestra for that type of film. But it's not everyone. You see, like in South Africa, the issue that I always found is that audio was the last thing
people think about.
And so if you have, let's just use R1 million budget. If someone has $1 million to shoot a film, which is nothing, but I'm just using the example, and they spend 900,000 on the video, and they wake up and like, oh, we only have 100,000 for audio. It was always the case. Sometimes we only have 10,000 for audio, and you're like, left behind, you're like, guys, we can't get orchestras. We have to just use background music or licensed music. So you know, that was the issue that we always had. And so starting to score my own music was a plus. Obviously without charging the massive costs. Yeah.
And like from the technology point of view, do you, like that example right there, there is no budget to get an orchestra, right? Do you think the technology has gotten to a point now where you can justify, you know what, I'm going to do this in Pro Tools rather, or FL Studio, or whatever you use, whatever software
For
you use?
me, there's still a massive difference between electronically producing strings and producing it with an orchestra. And the big difference is energy. If you stand in a room where orchestra plays, that emotion moves you, that energy moves you. Whereas if it's electronically produced, you still get a similar result, but there is a difference. There is a difference for me.
I hear that. And like, that's one more question from me. What for you is one of the best soundtracks to a film?
A movie called Inception, and the guy who did the score was Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer.
And the favorite track would be Time.
Time.
Yeah. It's such a simple chord progression, and it's the same chord progression, but it just keeps building. You can feel the emotion changing. And when he performed it live with the orchestra, I was like, this is mind-blowing. Writing it for film and adapting it to perform it live, that's crazy. That's crazy good. Even the Batman
movies.
The Batman movies, Hans Zimmer killed it. Yeah.
Interstellar.
Amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's from just as for the cinephiles who are watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how your journey has shaped your journey, this full spectrum of your journey has shaped who you are today?
Sure, that is a deep question. Look, my journey is shaped by my faith, not by what I do. People think being a musician is cool and it shapes your character, and it does if you allow it. It's not a good idea to be shaped by the rock and roll lifestyle. It's not a good idea to be shaped by trying to be on TV, trying to be in front of the camera, trying to be fancy. You have to be shaped by the morals that you build for yourself. And I come from a Christian faith, Christian background, and that is what was the anchor throughout. And a lot of guys who are Christian, they've gone crazy left and right. So I'm not saying if you're a Christian, you've walked the straight road. No, we've all fallen like crazy, but at least we have an anchor. When you fall, where do you go back to? Your faith, you know. What pulls you back is your faith. Some guys that we grew up with who are heavily on drugs, and they get pulled back to that thing. You have to have that anchor, that thing that pulls you back. Even if you veer off the road slightly, it pulls you back. And that's the thing for me. And then later on, starting my own family, which was like another anchor for me. So the two things together. And in the Christian faith, family is big. It's a big priority. So that's the two things. Yeah, so when people ask that question, they always think, how did music shape you? It hasn't shaped me. It's the faith.
That shaped your music up.
Yeah, that shaped my music, yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all human. We all make mistakes. Life can life.
Life can life very hard.
Tell me about a time when you didn't know what you were doing. If you ever had a doubt. If you ever feel you wanna send out a CV for a job at wherever. Sports store.
Yeah, when I was 19 and the band ended, because the band went from nothing to something very quick. And then at 19, I don't know who I am, but at 19, 20, you also like, yo, I'm in this band. And at that age where the maturity is lacking, you're like, we've arrived. No, we haven't arrived. And so I think at that moment when the band ended, I was like, okay, what do I do now? I sent out my CV to work at banks. Me working at a bank, it's crazy. I had different jobs. I worked at a locksmith company. I had all these multiple jobs, but the ultimate goal was always music, and it was always creativity and production.
I love that you have to pay your dues on your becoming.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
It's just about staying on course.
Yeah.
And for a lot of artists or creatives, we feel like it needs to be the thing that pays our salaries. It needs to be the thing that we're professional, and then, okay, once I'm professional, then I can become the creative or the artist. Where there's actually nothing wrong with having a job and being an artist.
Absolutely.
Wrong with having a job to pay for your passion as an artist and creative, and to no doubt your story, the benefits thereof. So yeah, so what did you say at this stage or this year is one of the tools that you're using, whether it be tech, mental, spiritual, physical? What did you say one of the tools that you've learned at this stage that you could probably pass on to your younger self, speaking to that?
Oh, me, I'm 20.
Are you 20?
I'm 22, yeah.
Damn, I feel old, bro. I'm like turning 38. You know what? When I started in the my production company, which was 11, 12 years old, I did one thing and I still do it today. I build relationships. And that relationships have lasted. I have the same clients I have 12 years ago. I mean, Jerry from Top Billing, we do a TV show called Sky's the Limit, right? That TV show is going on 12, 13 years of constant work. And I just think to myself, like, I've never advertised. I've just built relationships, just built network and maintained network. And that's why my company is successful in my eyes. Someone else might think, you're not as successful because you're not all over the place with your marketing. It's word of mouth. It's like I connect with you and I work with you for the rest of your life.
And that connection, like, is it from the work or from you as a person? Like
Both. I mean, you meet someone, you do the best you can in the job and you impress them, and that's it. You guys work together. It's hard to find people that you click with, you know. And so that's why I think in this relationship, if you want to do another album, you probably want to do it with me because we built a relationship, right? So I think it's that type of thing, and that's why I give musicians space to breathe, musicians space to be creative. I know guys that'll go like, you have 2 weeks to do your album, let's go. Whether you do it great or not, I'm just pressing record and I'm just giving you my advice. You have me for 2 weeks. After that, we're done. And I'm like, that's not a process to be creative. You have to give space for life. You have to give space for creative freedom. But that comes with building relationships. Because if I purely just want to make money, this would have been a different conversation, you know? But it's about also fostering people that you work with. I kind of look at an artist and I go, what can I input? Yes, I'm getting paid a fee, but when the money is gone, have I influenced you? So I think that's relationally is also very important. Because every artist that I have worked with before, they always go like, man, you've done this for me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's pretty cool.
One of your artists that I also liked one of his posts the other day, he said, thank you for changing my life.
Yeah, Drizzle. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for changing
What a legend.
And that's beautiful. And just following artists that you've worked with, different genres. Some sort of like an alternative pop vibe, some hip hop, some sort of like different, you know. And I can relate, you know, with him and with other artists that I don't even know, you know, and I can just see in the way they're putting out their music, that sort of like common thread of what Jay is saying, that imprinting of something beyond the studio done, or just printing of something even just beyond the song, you know. So yeah, beautiful. So you work with a lot of artists and a lot of projects, and a lot of movies by the sounds of it. What would you single out as top 3 projects, something that really excited you?
Yeah, that is tough, you know, because I was thinking about it the other day. You know, you have producers that have awards. You have producers that don't have awards, but they equally have done amazing work, you know. There's one project that I won an award for. I didn't really enjoy that project. And then there's projects like this where you sit back and you play and you get emotional. You're like, oh, that's cool. Will it land in 5? I hope so. If it doesn't fail. It's still amazing. So it's hard to like single out those moments. I mean, one moment in the film world was working with a movie that would end up in Netflix and doing a fully surround sound, a version of that. It was pretty much just myself and 2 other guys who were responsible for all of the audio in that movie, which was quite amazing. And we had an amazing cinema to work in, a beautiful 50-seater cinema, private cinema in Bryanston, and the company was called Beyond Sound. So that was a highlight from a film point of view. From a production point of view, it was working with guys like you, like Loufi and Early B. In the Early B's first album, I was fortunate to be part of some of the production, Loufi, some of the production, yours, all of the production, and to see the cats coming from Port Elizabeth to do what they're doing today is quite amazing. So yeah, I think that is probably the most rewarding. I don't really care for working with people that are famous already, and I have, so then they're not the highlight. They see you have an ability and you do it for them, and then that's done. There's no relationship, but the relationship and the highlight is seeing someone go from nothing to something. That is the biggest, and that's why I appreciate you, Loufi, Ali B, the film. Yeah,
That's amazing, man.
yeah,
So, from music, you're also now the man behind the camera.
yeah,
You're doing a lot of, I'll be with you in studio and you're taking calls with a lot of corporate, big companies,
Yeah.
brand companies,
Yeah.
insurance companies, internet companies, 5G, Wi-Fi companies, and just to mention a few. What's it like as the businessman and the artist? I know from just getting involved and just touching, not even really touching production, but I have a production gear and our studio gear, and having to sit down and learn as a new beginner and to pile up those 10,000 hours. It's really a lot of time. You have to sit behind the desk in the chair doing deep state work, and there's constant distractions. There's the phone, there's the things happening in the world,
Your life.
Being a family man, it's what's going on in South Africa, what's going on in the sports world, us being world champs, all of these things, and how do you maintain that distinguishing flow within being a creative and artist and also a hardcore businessman and entrepreneur at the same time?
Sure. That's a loaded question, but I think when it comes to a lot of things happening around you, you have to have tunnel vision. And I'm going to use a perfect example like TikTok, man. TikTok is such a cool thing to have, but it's also a terrible thing to have. TikTok, one day you wake up Monday and you're like scrolling and it's funny jokes and you're laughing, and then Tuesday it's war. It's about war and people dying, and it just gets your mood down. You must have tunnel vision. You must be able to filter all this nonsense out and just focus on what you have to do, And so for me, yes, you can't forget about what's happening in the world, but if you have a job at hand, you have to be mentally stable, mentally available, and mentally present to be part of the job, especially like producing an album. You can't be stressing about war happening in Afghanistan. You have to be focused in that moment. So doing that whole tunnel vision thing is very important. But also for your mental health, you need to be able to zone things out and focus on what you have to focus on: your family, your business. Being a business owner and being a musician is amazing for me, because I no longer think of myself as a touring musician anymore. I'm pretty much done with touring, and I'm happy with that. I'm a producer and behind the scenes guy, so that's cool. But what I take out as a musician is it's an outlet for me. So if I have a crazy day in business, doing deals, getting work done, delivering work, and I pick up my guitar and I can just play and have an outlet, that relationship between the two is nice. It's a nice balance of stress, nice balance of, it almost like equalizes all the stress and just makes you feel much better. So that's a good outlet to be a musician and running a business. But it's very dangerous to be a musician that is not real. When I started off my first studio, I spent so much money trying to get the best gear, trying to get the best room, trying to get the best everything, that I forgot to actually sit with the gear
And
master the gear. And so that is a trap for musicians, because you want the best everything and you're like, oh, I'm not getting my 10,000 hours. I just got the gear. What do you have? Oh, I've got Pro Tools HD. It's sick. Oh, how long you've been using it? Actually, I haven't opened it yet. I haven't registered the license. You realize you got all this gear, but you don't do anything with it. So I started, maybe 8 years ago, I started going like, you know what, screw this big studio setup. Let me minimize it. Yes, I have Pro Tools. Yes, I have a laptop. What can I do with this? Let me hit the ceiling before I buy something else. And then I need this gear. Okay, cool. Let me get to know that gear. Okay, then. Instead of just throwing money trying to get gear and not building that 10,000 hours. So that trap I had to avoid. And now being part of video production is another trap, because you can just keep buying gear, buying gear.
I can relate.
But if you have a camera and you know how to use it, you know how to compose a shot, you know how to do the 3-point lighting systems, you know how to get the audio to be recorded correctly, then you move on from there. You don't just keep buying the next best thing. It's like the iPhone. I got the 13, the 15's already out. I'm okay with my 13, though. It's still doing the job.
Still doing the job.
You know, and so I kind of do that with all the gear. I get the most of it. Otherwise you fail at business. Your profits are going to be non-existent if you keep buying stuff, you know. So yeah.
There's this sort of saying from a businessman that says we need to think about the money that's on the table that we're not getting. You know, and it just speaks to what you're saying with regards to optimizing your resources. So if I don't have a Canon or Sony camera, a big sort of like HD one, I don't know much about the tech, but how am I using my phone? How am I using my Android? Is there a way? Is there a way for me?
Making the most of it.
Most of it, and really using that resource. Is there an app I can get to record myself on there? Is there a painting tool, an editing tool that I can use the free resource for, and really optimize it and research it? And just going back to what you said as a tool that you use, speaking about tools, the relationship tool, I think it's so beautiful, because being someone that has to sit down and edit, you know, from an artistic point of seeing the creative process. When we were in the creative process and I tried to focus on the business or the admin side, it totally halted the creative process, or it had an influence on it, not a good one. You know, and it's almost like the creative process will demand you only give it creative energy. You know, and once that process is sort of done, then the next phase can happen. You know, so a lot of patience. I think we overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, you know, and we underestimate what we can achieve in 10. You know, so to have a long-term plan and to work at it incrementally and slowly with tunnel vision, like you said, and to use the pain of life, to use the pain of life,
appreciate it,
and as a resource to be creative is a beautiful funnel, I think, to make you better at business. If it's not meditating, if it's not breathing, if it's not prayer, it can be creativity. You know. So yeah, Jay, man, if you could give yourself, look at yourself at 50, where do you see yourself?
50. I mean, I would probably, you know, still be part of some sort of production, if my ears allow me, if my eyes allow me, because you need to be able to hear for audio, you need to be able to see for video. But yeah, at 50, the main priority is family. Main priority is family. Obviously, you need to provide, so still running the company or being part of it somehow. But the thing I wanted to say earlier that ties in is it's so important to build network. It's so important to learn to work with guys that are better than you. And you're 20 and I'm 38. And I'm doing it longer. And so, but you just being next to me, seeing how I set up, you can learn.
Definitely. I mean, this setup that we did here, most of it, Jay basically like ran it through me, showed me a few things. I hear that.
But me working with my network, I've got a network of editors and guys who shoot and do animation. most of them are better than me in animation. Most of them are better than me in editing. So my strength is landing the clients, script production, filming, and I have my finger in everything. In editing, I do, but I get guys that are better than me. Because in order for me to get more business, I can't do all the work.
By yourself.
So you have to go like, here's the thing I filmed, give it to guy number one, you edit. Guy number two, you do the animation. I am now going out to get more work. And that's how the company grows and it becomes bigger. But if you want to do a one-man band thing, hey, you're going to struggle in life. So open yourself up to networks, open yourself up to work with better people than you. Don't be intimidated. Don't have imposter syndrome. Just learn.
And how do you get yourself in those spaces, even, to create a network?
Look, when I started off, I started doing free work. I was like, hey, I'll produce a song for free. It's just practice. And then you work in a production company, and then you realize, okay, cool, I've learned something. Let me charge X amount. And then you've upped. And now, okay, now I'm upping my price because now I've now bought a professional studio. And now I'm upping my price because now I've got more experience. And that's how you grow. But I've always been with guys that were better than me. And there is a stage where the student becomes the teacher. But you mustn't strive for that. You must always just strive to find someone that's better than you. Or doing something that you've never done before. Even at age 50. I'm going to try and find someone that I was like, how do you do that edit, man? That edit's crazy. I've never seen that before. What are you doing? And then you learn, you know. So just, for me, put the ego aside and you probably will be one of the best. The ego kills everything, man.
I don't know if you know this, but Jay was a very avid athlete in cricket. Provincial cricketer, even some national colours.
Cricketer, yeah, sheesh. And then I broke my finger. And I was like, I can't do music anymore, man.
Yeah. I just did boxing a while ago, like after rugby, you know, I was like, where do I get that outlet? Started boxing. And I was like, no, but then I can't play guitar. Like the finger, so I feel on that. So being a sportsman, you know, growing up in the sporting fraternity, it's very, very different. Being an athlete and being a musician, I felt like it's almost two different jackets. I felt like I needed to choose at that stage, you know, because of the culture differences and the people you end up surrounding yourself by. It's a very contrasting world. Being an athlete and chasing sort of like the athletic dream and ambitions and being a creative and an artist. What do you say someone having that conflicting vision and not knowing which jacket to wear? How would you advise somebody who's having a tough time facing it?
I think it's dependent on age. I think when you're young and you're a teenager or in your 20s, I just try everything, man. Just try everything. If you're worried about burnout, it's fine. You're young. Burn yourself out. You know, do everything. And then when you start realizing, okay, cool, it's too much for me, you will then find what you love and what you're passionate about. You know, for me, I loved cricket. I mean, sheesh, we played. One of the guys I loved playing with was Reese Telling, who's in Canada now. But yeah, I mean, he's still into cricket. He's coaching cricket in Canada, and we are doing totally different things. But it's okay because, you know, he chose cricket and I chose music. But it's really the passion inside of you. And don't worry about like money. When you're in your 20s, don't choose the thing that makes the most money when it's a passion, right? Because then you're going to be miserable. I know accountants who are musicians and they hate accounting, but it pays the bills. But they also missed out their passion because now they're 40 or 50, you know, so it's hard to say choose this or choose that. I think in your 20s, try everything. And then maybe late 20s, 30s, narrow that down and see what you're really passionate about. If you're passionate about it, you will make a way to make money out of it and make a living of it, you know. So coming from PE where running a studio looks impossible to now being in Johannesburg and have had already 7 or 8 studios. Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's amazing. So keep the passion, focus on the art, tunnel vision down, connect with the people.
Build a network, because my network feeds work towards me, you know, and I feed them with work constantly, you know.
being in the rock sphere of life, you know, one of the things that deterred me as a young man from the music industry because I was trying to walk an athletic path, and at some point there was also a spiritual path. I felt like just when things were about to take off musically, I was in like this little group and we did sort of like hip hop vibes. I was just singing choruses and stuff, myself and Gage. And we were just, it was Jemaine Roberts' label at the time, and they reached out to us. And it was like, whoa, what's happening, bro? Like, here we go.
Here we go.
In an actual studio, you know, with Big Boy and Caesar, the journalist, and those guys.
I remember Caesar the journalist, man, and Big Boy, yeah.
So
Used to work with both of them, yeah.
Like in the studio and recording, and this is sort of happening, and this is, I'm midway pro rugby player, you know, and still dabbling with this. And the lifestyle was just so different because I was also exposed to different ways that different people were working, and it was almost like a shock to me. It was like, whoa, no, this, you know, I don't have to. Sort of like I don't want to have to be that person to be able to do the music thing. And you know, it took a lot of either I'm gonna retract myself from the environment and just focus on the rugby thing. But looking back now, I would have almost said, just be. You know, just be, let it flow. Be like Bruce Lee's advice, just like
water.
Like water.
Be the musician, be the creative when you're there. Don't judge people. Don't judge people's way of working. Don't judge environments. Whether you're on a spiritual path, you need to be able to get along with everybody, accept people the way they are. We can't pass judgment to anything or anyone, you know. And then moving on and being in different creative environments and working with different artists, there'd be a time when like we'd have to drink, or there'd have to be smoking, or there'd have to be some sort of like thing happening in the studio. And I was like, not saying that I'm a purist by any means, you know what I mean, but like I didn't want it to have to be something that I had to do to turn on my creativity.
Yeah.
And that tripped me out. Like,
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was a precondition. It was a precondition to go out and have a jam and have a party to get, like we said, now data to download and then to go write about it. Right now, I know that it is something I can switch on and off. It's something that
It's
is
not
in you,
constantly on.
internally, constantly, that fire that is burning inside of you that you want to get out creative, like I said, whichever way it may be. And you don't need the external to influence your internal output. You know? And that was a limiting factor for me. You know, it really made me say, okay, back with the music. And I'm grateful now at the end of the day. You know, that sitting with Jay, that Jay continued and grew so much and he learned so much, and me meeting him now after all that you've
All
learned,
the years, yeah.
all the skills that you have, and me getting access to that. You know, but for people out there who are sitting with that conflicting situation, there's nothing wrong with wearing more than one jacket.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being the artist and the athlete. There's nothing wrong with being the chef and football player.
Da Vinci used to speak about that as well. You know, you must learn about the science in the art and the art in the science. You know, it's all connected. So I hear that. That's beautiful, man.
There's just some magic in our relationship, and it also probably helped the synergy without us knowing, me feeling comfortable that he was also an athlete, you know, and that sort of like also magnified. I didn't know that till working with him now after all these years, you know, but it just sort of like made me feel a little bit more comfortable in my skin too. So we have to get out there. We have to get out there and mingle with people and get to know people and get to really be interested in different kinds of people, and you know, to sort of like get out of the. I think we just came out of this like whole restriction slump where we were all stuck in our houses and getting comfortable, and it's so easy to because it's comfortable. You know, it's and we really need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to create uncomfortable situations and environments for ourselves, for us to be able to grow. And part of that is like performing live. so singing live, playing live, performing live. Are you still drawn to that? Is it something you would still do? Is it something that you value? Do you find, what kind of magic do you find?
Yeah, so being the artist was very, very intimidating for me. Writing the music and then performing it, that was always tough for me to do. Because I'm an introvert. I like being in my room, doing my thing, you know. But we overcame that. But recently I've been touring with Loufi, playing the guitars, and it was no pressure because I was not the artist. I was the guitarist. But you get to enjoy playing in front of like, 2, 3, 4, 10,000 people, you know, without the pressure, which was really nice. So I think the benefit of that now is quite nice. So I every now and then I still do that. I don't full-time tour and travel because my priority is my business and my family. But it's a nice outlet every now and then, yeah.
On that note,
On that note,
Waffles, do you have anything else you want to ask?
I do. However, the one mic, the camera is dead. Where do you see the future of music production and audio engineering, as well as video production going? Like, what trends are you noticing that you think will be sustainable?
I think. I mean, we all are aware of AI. We all have been exposed to AI. I don't think as a musician or as a producer or videographer, you should be against. You should be open to what is coming. I think if you don't follow the trends, you will suffer a little bit. And the reason why I say that is because technology moves and you constantly have to move and adapt with it. And so always open yourself up to new ways of doing things. And don't be afraid that AI is going to take over.
Oh, your job.
I think people need to realize that, and you were talking about it just now, you know, I think we were made on this earth to connect. We're connecting beings. And then COVID happens and we're so disconnected. And then social media happens, we're so disconnected because we're stuck on our phones. I think nowadays everything is pushing us to be disconnected from one another. We just have to continuously learn to connect. And you were saying it so beautifully, because it's in that connection where you get collaboration, where your creative juices flow. We're creative beings, man. And whether it's in music or video or baking, or we're creative beings. We create things. I mean, we got cameras. People build cameras, man. And people build lighting systems.
We're made in the image and likeness of God, the ultimate creator.
But you know, when AI comes, collaborate with it, man. You will find yourself being on the next level.
Definitely.
You know, I'm sitting with my phone, and everyone's like, if there was a guy behind the camera, would be like, get off your phone. I'm literally controlling the lights, man. It's part of AI, you know. We should get with it, but we should not be afraid of it.
Definitely. AI. Yeah, as a software developer, I can definitely relate to that sentiment. And yeah, guys, on that note, on that bombshell, thank you for joining us for today's episode. We hope that Jay's insights might have influenced you to take your journey to the next level. Remember to click the subscribe button, like, and turn on the notifications for any new episodes that we have. Leave a comment below on what you'd like to see in the next coming episodes, or any potential questions that you might have for Jay. We might be able to get them to him. We might not. Can't make any promises. But yeah, guys, thank you, love, and bless. Peace.
My plans to stay up now. Don't slow down, face your ground. Been there before, blacked out, lying on the ground. Oh, the first and the last time.